Hey YouTube, David Staples coming back to you with another video. So this is a continuation of the Cisco CCENT and CCNA video series that I'm creating for the ICND1 and ICND2 exams. The current version is the 100-105 and the 200-105. But in the last video we set the host names for our individual switches and for our routers. I finished that up of course after the video. And so I told you the next video that I brought to you would be how to set the IP addresses on these Cisco routers. So let's get started with that right now. So as I said, today we want to set the IP addresses on our Cisco routers so that they can actually talk to each other. If you look at this network, obviously the only thing that I've done so far is just to set the host name on the devices. So the switches, of course, can talk to each other, the PCs can talk to each other, but you'll notice that the links between my routers and my switches are down, and the links between my individual routers are also down. That's because we haven't gone in to configure the interfaces on our router, which is a required step to make everything talk to each other. So essentially, we notice that this link is down here from switch to router, and we also notice that this link here is fully down from the switch to the router. So let's just go ahead and start off with router 1, and we're going to bring up the command line interface here, and of course we're going to go into enable mode. And if I do a show running config, you can see that currently I haven't really configured anything for these interfaces. So we've got interface gigabit 00 or gigabit ethernet 00. There's no IP address, and it's currently in a shutdown state. So it's in a shutdown state. That means that, of course, the interface is not live. It's not active. So there's a couple of different things that I need to do to make this router actually talk to this switch over here. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and come into global configuration mode. So again, I can do the configure terminal, or I can just do conf t is our shortcut for that. And so now that I'm in global configuration mode, now I need to go into the interface configuration mode. So if I say int g0/1, this takes me into the configuration for the G0/1 interface, which, as we can see, is the gigabit interface right here. And then I need to give it an IP address. So I'm going to use the IP addressing of the network that we see over here, because obviously on this switched network, I need to have its own network. So I'm going to give this the IP address of 192.168.1.1, and with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. So that's basically just the standard Class C subnet mask that we're going to use here. For this example, I'm not going to get into subnetting with a /30 like we could use for router to router eventually when we get into configuring the other interfaces. And of course, for this network, we can see that I need at least a couple of hosts on here, so /30 wouldn't work there anyways. So I'm just going to use the entire Class C, the /24 here, or a 255.255.255.0. So when I press enter, that'll go ahead and set my IP address, but you'll notice that the interface hasn't come up quite yet. So next what I need to do is actually issue a no shutdown command. And I could also abbreviate that as just no shut. Either way works. I'll go ahead and just use the no shut for now. So press enter, and you'll see that it says line protocol changed up, and of course this should be coming up here momentarily as well. So while that's working, I'll go ahead and just move this over here and go ahead and bring up my second router, router 2. So I'm going to come into the command line interface here, and we're going to tell it to go into enable mode as well. And I'll say configure terminal. I'll just use the full command this time. And you'll notice this light actually just turned green. So why did it take so long? Of course, when we look at the switch election process, it does take a few seconds for it to actually go through and examine which port is the root port and set the various statuses there. We'll talk about the spanning tree protocol in another video and how the switch election works. But as I mentioned, we're going to go ahead and actually come over here and pull up R2 and configure this interface over here. So let's go into interface G0/G0 on this one, and we're going to set the IP address for the network here. Again, I'm just using a /24 for this, even though I could use a /30. So we're going to give it an IP address of 192.168.5. We're going to use a .2 here. I'll put the .1 on this interface over here in just a moment. Again, the same subnet mask. And then, of course, I'm going to tell it no shutdown. And so it brings that interface up. And let's go ahead and come back over here to R1 and bring the interface up on that one as well. So we'll exit out of this interface configuration. You can hop right from interface to interface. Just my personal best practice, I like to actually type in exit and then go back into the next interface. So we'll say interface G0/0, which, as you can see, is the interface that's going over here to my second router here. And then, of course, the IP address, we'll use 192.168.5.1 with that same subnet mask, of course, to put them on the same network. And then, of course, I'll issue my no shutdown command. And you'll notice that as soon as I did that, it actually brings up the entire link here. So that's good. So now I need to go ahead and move on to my G01 interface over here. So again, I like to exit out of the interface. You don't necessarily have to, but int G0/1 will let me configure that interface. So I'll say IP address 192.168.6.1, 255.255.255.0 to give me a /24, and issue a no shutdown there as well. And then, of course, my G01 interface on R3 over here. I'll come into my command line for that one. So go into enable mode, conf t, IP address, and of course I can abbreviate that as just IP ADER. So IP address, let's see, we're still on the 192.168.6 network, so 192.168.6.2. 255.255.255.0. Oh, helps to go into the interface first, right? So interface G0/1, IP address 192.168.6.2, 255.255.255.0, and issue a no shutdown here as well. And so I've got, of course, that brings that link up. And so we'll go ahead and just do this a couple more times, just so you can see this working one last time here. Now, I'm just going to come over here to this interface here, just to kind of shorten things up. I think you guys kind of get the hint of, or the gist of the commands that you need to use to set the IP address on this. And of course, I typed in the wrong command, so that, of course, is not going to work for me right now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just set the G02 interface as the last one here, and then I'll go ahead and just set the rest of them in just a moment without you guys having to watch through, setting it on these 5 different routers separately. So once we come back, everything will be set and ready to go. And of course, you guys will be able to see a completely working network. And of course, we'll be able to ping from one router to the next. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I've just finished setting the IP address on the router interface here. And of course, the switch over here needs to go through its selection process. But as you can see, everything is actually set now. So theoretically, if I come into router 4 here, and let's exit out of the configuration mode here. So I'm just at a standard privileged mode or enable mode prompt here. So I should be able to ping the IP address of router 3 over here. So if I do a ping 192.168.7.1, I've never talked to this device before, so the first couple should actually kind of error out here. So we'll notice that we get one error, and then of course the rest of them are successful. So of course, why is that? So essentially what's happened here is that since router 4 has never talked to router 3 before, it hasn't resolved that IP address to the MAC address quite yet, right? So on a PC, of course, we don't really see the ARP resolution there. Essentially, all the pings just start going immediately. When it comes to these routers, though, the first ping will actually time out while it's resolving the IP address down to the MAC address of this interface over here on R3. And then once that happens, of course, it stores the MAC address on the table and says, okay, well, I know that the MAC address of this port right here resolves to 192.168.7.1, and thus that's when the rest of the pings are actually successful. So that's pretty much it for this video. So, of course, today we talked about how to configure an IP address for a Cisco router. We haven't really gotten into the switches yet. We'll actually take a look at how to set IP addresses on a VLAN interface on the switch as we start looking more at the VLANs. And of course, you can set these for the management interface there. But for how to set the IP address on a Cisco router, hopefully you've learned how to do that now, or refreshed your memory on how to do that. And we'll be coming back to you with another video here very soon. In the meantime, feel free to check out the rest of the videos on my channel. Be sure to click on that subscribe button. It certainly helps me out. And click on like or thumbs up, leave a comment below, whatever you'd like to do. But at the very minimum, just click on that subscribe button. And I will see you guys again very soon. So thanks for tuning in.